Matthew 19, there's a very interesting story. Jesus tells his disciples that it is harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. And they were astonished at what he said because they had always connected material prosperity with God's blessing. While it is true that covenant living will ultimately produce prosperity, it's not an automatic. In other words, just because someone is poor doesn't mean that he's not part of the kingdom of God. There's an interesting play on words here when Jesus is talking about going through the eye of a needle, and I want to show you what a first century needle looks like. This is a very large one. This would have been used for mending nets, for example. We have very small ones that we've excavated also, so it's a common thing that they had. So everybody knew what the eye of a needle was in the first century. The problem is not the eye of the needle, the problem is what we're trying to get through it. And when we're dealing with this passage, we have something going on linguistically that's very interesting. We say that the New Testament is written in Greek, and it is true that the manuscripts were translated into Greek so that the entire Mediterranean world could understand the message. But Jesus' first language and the first language of his followers was Aramaic. So when Jesus was thinking his message, he's thinking in Aramaic. When he's speaking, for example, the Sermon on the Mount, he's speaking in Aramaic. It goes through translation into Greek and then through another layer of translation to come to us in English. So the potential linguistically for misunderstanding is very clear. Now, the word in Greek that is translated is very clearly means camel in Greek. But in Aramaic, the word is different. The word doesn't mean camel, the word means rope. And so, what do we get through the eye of a needle? Is it a camel or is it a rope? Well, if we're taking the camel, that's a problem. And so here's what people have said for the last 150 years. There's a gate in Jerusalem called the Eye of a Needle, and camels get down on their knees and they're unburdened so that they can crawl through this gate. And that's the picture Jesus was giving for the rich, that they must unburden themselves and humble themselves to enter the kingdom of heaven. The only problem is that no such gate exists or has ever existed. The one that tourist guides show to folks today is only about 250 years old. There is no gate by that name. So that then doesn't solve our problem. We're right back where we started, trying to get the rich into the kingdom of heaven. Now maybe you're thinking, why should I be concerned about the rich? Well, if you're a North American and you're listening to this, you're in the top 5% of income earners in the world. That means you have more than 95% of the people in the world, and that means that you are the rich in this story, and so you should be very concerned about it. If it's not a gate like that, then let's think about what it would mean if it were to be a rope. Can we pass a rope through the eye of a needle? Well, at least now the metaphor is making sense, but it's not going to happen. How would we do that? And the only way to do it is to slowly, meticulously, and painstakingly unravel every fiber of this rope. I could one by one pass every thread through the eye of God's needle. And when I did, I would be born again. Think about the contrast. Bartimaeus at Jericho, he's blind, he has no friends, he's got no wealth, no reputation. When he hears Jesus is passing by, he screams out at the top of his lungs, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." That man has nothing to unravel. He's ready to enter the kingdom of God. Those of us who have been blessed with material prosperity in this world sometimes have to unravel the complexity of our lives and pass it through the eye of God's needle. We have to unravel to enter the kingdom of God.